You come all the way up here? What are you rehearsing about Shane's? I'm like, you come all the way up here to hang out with Shane Cobb? Looks like it's not early.
The clock's a little slow.
Yeah.
I have 6:30. That's great. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I would like to call this Monday, September 16th, 2024, School Committee Business Meeting to order. Mrs. Yell, can you take the roll, please?
Mayor Reardon?
I'm here.
Sarah Hall?
Here.
Andrew Boger?
Here.
Brian Callahan?
Here.
Brianna Higgins? Not here. Kathleen Shaw?
Here.
Juliet Walker?
Present.
All right, can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Hall.
All right, good evening, everyone. Before we begin public comment, I'm just going to read off a few reminders that we do at the start of each meeting. Please keep to topics within the school committee's scope of authority. We encourage civility. Be mindful of the fact that this is a public meeting which is being live streamed and recorded for all ages in our community. Please be aware that this is not an opportunity for discussion and you will not receive a response at this time. You will have 2 minutes for your comment. Longer comments can be sent to the school committee via email. And first up, we have Moray Wilson. Am I reading that right?
Yes.
Come on up to the mic here, and you can just state your name and address,
Okay.
and then you have your 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Moray Wilson, and I live at 13 Lucy Drive. I just want to start by thanking everyone in this room. I am so grateful for all that you all do to make our school system so great for our kids. So I have a son in 4th grade at the Mullen and a daughter in 6th grade at the Knock. And I'm part of a growing group of parents who are pledging to try to hold off on giving our children smartphones until 9th grade. Even though my kids don't have smartphones yet, they have other devices. And like most parents, I find it's a constant battle to limit and monitor their video games, tablets, and watches when they are out of school. I'm so grateful that while they're in school, there is an away for the day policy at the Mullen and Knock, and I'm hoping that our district would consider expanding that policy to include the high school for the benefit of the current high school students and for future high school students like my children. I respect all parents' rights to do what they think is best for their children when it comes to technology use in their homes, but I strongly feel that school is one area of our children's lives that should be free from the constant distractions and pressures that come along with the use of smartphones and devices. I'm concerned that the current policy at the high school of putting away devices during class time alone is just not enough. I would love for all students in our district to have the gift of a school day where their sole focus is on academic learning and also social learning. As a parent and as a therapist, I worry about how kids will develop important social skills if they are constantly distracted or disengaged with their devices between classes at lunch. For so many reasons, I am so grateful for all the district has done so far on the issue of smart devices in school, and I hope you would consider taking it a step further and expanding the away for the day policy to include the high school. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Sarah Collins.
Hi, Sarah Collins, 39 Daniel Lucy Way. I am a mother of a 4th and 6th graders who attend the Mullen and the Knock, and I'm also a technology executive, and I think technology is amazing. Even look at this, live streaming, right? What transparency. My husband and I have been thoughtfully reading about how to appropriately integrate technology into our children's lives. What access should they have? When should they have it? And part of this quest brought me to the Heads Up, Phones Down group. I know they have shared a lot of data with you and other members of our community, so I won't reiterate that here. But that data supports creating a school community where our kids and their teachers have the environment to interact with each other free from the distractions of smartphones, including Starbucks and Dunkin' Donut orders in the middle of the day. I think parents need to take the lead in modeling the behavior we want to see, and they need to take the lead in setting expectations of their children for this behavior. But I also think that schools and families partner together, and together we play a vital and valued role in our community. So I make my comment today to say, let's strive to be better, Newburyport. As a concerned parent, I want to be part of the solution. We have an awesome opportunity to be a leader in this movement and remove smartphones from our schools and give our kids the gift to focus on learning socially, emotionally, and intelligently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Laura Wentworth.
Hi, I'm Laura Wentworth. I live on 11 Willow Avenue, and like my friends, I am here to voice my support for further discussion of expanding the policies to limit cell phone usage in our schools. I am the parent of a first grader and a fourth grader. And although I certainly appreciate the policies in place to minimize distractions in the classroom at the high school level, I don't believe they're doing enough to address the greater issue of mental health and how it relates to cell phone usage in adolescence. Most of us parents would agree that the health and safety of our kids is the single most important thing to us. Why would we not do everything in our power to support our children's mental health during such critical years in their lives at a time in our country when mental health among adolescents has never been worse? On the topic of cell phone and social media usage and mental health, the evidence is out there and it is clear. The correlation between time spent on social media and increased levels of mental distress in adolescents, especially among adolescent girls, is alarming. Our children are not going to elect to be without their phones for 6 hours a day. It is our responsibility as a community to provide these kids with the gift of a phone-free environment for the sake of their health and wellness. This does not happen when one group of parents allows phones at schools and one group of parents does not. This simply creates a divide instead of offering the benefits of a phone-free school community such as connection and problem solving and even experiencing boredom, all of which lead to improved mental health outcomes. Is banning phones in our schools the easy thing to do? No. Does it come with its own challenges and logistics to work through? Sure. As I'm sure many of us tell our own kids, doing the right thing is not always easy, but that does not mean it is not worth doing. As parents, we have certainly dealt with challenges and logistics for the sake of doing the right things for our kids, and this is a challenge I think we're up to tackle here in Newburyport with your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have our staff recognitions.
All right. Come on up.
Sure.
All right. Look at that. That's our starting lineup. So there you go. Just to say a few words, every year when we kick off the opening of schools with our teachers, we have really like a celebratory kickoff for the school year, a lot of enthusiasm. This year was really special in the sense that Lisa Furlong and Tom Abrams and our teacher leaders throughout the summer, we were asking how could we bring more energy to opening day. And through teachers' feedback, we really created an awesome opening day for everybody. There was red carpet. We coached with the new company, Coach Bus, our staff over to the high school. But what I really believe sets the tone for us is when we have the opportunity to recognize veteran staff. The staff members we're going to recognize tonight are probably the most caring professionals, dedicated professionals I've ever worked with. 30 years dedication to the Newburyport Public Schools, to the children and families of this great city. So opening day, when first thing we do is recognize their dedication. I think it sets the tone. So not only are these staff members great teachers, but they're also great role models and mentors for the new staff coming in. So I can't say enough about these teachers that we're going to recognize tonight. And also, who's not here, a cafeteria worker who's also dedicated 30 years to the Newburyport Public Schools. So first up, we would like to recognize, and you have to stay up here for another team photo, Anne-Marie Day, 4th grade teacher at the Mullen, 30 years. All right. Next is former 3rd grade teacher for many years and now is our Bresnahan librarian, is Renee Ames. And our NOC special education teacher, Susan O'Neill. And who is not here tonight, but we also want to recognize 30 years of service in the cafeteria, Donna Thyberge. All right. Yeah. No jerseys, yeah. Any family members want to come on up and take a picture? Come on up. I'm I know. Awesome. Thank you all.
Do you want a brief recess? Yeah. We'll now take a brief recess to recognize our honorees tonight.
This can be signed.
Yeah, exactly. Wish I could do one of those whistles.
That's why this is my favorite part.
Yeah, I understand. That's why.
We lost the parents who were here.
Yeah, there's. Yeah. Oh.
She gets up early for the match.
We're going to get back into the meeting in a moment.
Back to the table.
Oh, all right.
I'm just more upset that we're celebrating 30 years and I'm more than 30 years out of high school now. So that's upsetting to me.
Shocking, yeah.
Those people weren't there when I was there. That's not right.
Okay, we're going to jump back into the meeting with our consent agenda, starting with the warrants. If you're all set, Mr. Callahan?
I'm all set. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $437,112.62 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We also have two sets of minutes that we need to approve this evening. The first one is from June 17th, so our last meeting of the previous year. Were there any corrections to those minutes that anyone noticed? Great. Then can I get a motion to approve the June 17th minutes?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the minutes from our last meeting, that was September 3rd. Any corrections to those minutes? All right, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from September 3rd?
So moved.
Second.
You can give it to Kathleen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. I wasn't there.
Oh, thank you. And now, drum roll please, it's time for our student representative report. It says here introduction, so I'm going to introduce everyone to Theo Roberts is a senior from Newburyport High School who is returning. You wanted to come back. You did it all last year and you're back. I love it. I love it. And unfortunately, Lizzie Homer will not be returning this year, so we're looking forward to having a new representative, preferably a junior, is what we're looking for, to join our team. So maybe at our next meeting, we'll meet the new representative. So over to you if there's anything you'd like to say, and then you can launch right into your report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have some news from the past few weeks from the 4 different schools. The Bresnahan has recently expanded their compost program with landfill recycling and composting bins, along with a new drainage system for liquids. Students in grades 1 through 3 have also started their literacy baseline assessments with Dibbles and iReady Math. The baseline data will help determine the course of the first intervention cycle. The Mullen School recently introduced a new book vending machine with funding from the NEF, and 4th and 5th graders students are also starting their instrumental and choral lessons this week. The Knox School ended last week with an all-school assembly and welcomed former New England Patriots player and 2-time Super Bowl champion Devin Wyman. Wyman's visit was not just a great way to end the week, but also a powerful reminder of the impact that choices, friends, and perseverance have on our goals. The assembly included a 45-minute speech and interaction session by Wyman, which the middle schoolers enjoyed. A big thank you to the PTO for sponsoring this event. 7th graders will also be starting their place-based trips next week, beginning with Sandy Point State Reservation on Monday. Lastly, for the high school, 6 high school students embarked on a trip to Germany in June and July as part of the German-American Partnership Program. The students lived with their host families at our partner school in the Black Forest for 3 weeks while sharing their presentations on American culture and life with the school students. All had a great time expanding their knowledge of the German language and culture. That is all from me. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so our first field trip is the Philadelphia trip. So, Mr. Marcos, you want to come on up here?
I feel like we should have been playing Rocky music on your way up. Right?
I didn't bring my slideshow, so I apologize. So you guys have that in your packets, correct?
We do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm just going to wing this. Very similar trip to last year. Oh, that'd be great. You don't mind? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Awesome. So a very similar trip to last year where we don't have the dates finalized. We're just trying to hammer that out now within the first couple of weeks with Jeff Rahilly. So we're working with the same exact company, Global Citizen. We've had great partnership with them for the last couple of years. We're just trying to figure out, oh, there we go. Mayor, let me give you your device back. Thanks.
I'm going to put it down and keep my head up.
There you go.
Good job.
Yeah, so essentially, you're looking at a 2-night, 3-day trip, same arrival, same departure type of process. Also trying to look at some feedback that we got the last 2 years around the museum selections. We have some really popular ones and we have some less popular ones. So my 8th grade coordinators are looking at potentially adding some new options for the trip. But just a quick overview, to see the Rocky steps on day one, we'll try to get to a ball game. The 2025 Major League Baseball schedule isn't, 2025 baseball schedule isn't out yet, so we'll have to establish if that when that comes out. And then also there's a Major League Soccer team also out there that we might be able to take a look as an alternative if we still want to do a sporting event. Also around the boat that we went on last year, it wasn't accessible for all students, so we want to take a look at another option as well. So those finer details we'll be working out over the course of the next couple of weeks. I actually have a meeting with my team tomorrow, and then Jeff is actually coming in on Thursday to hopefully finalize all the dates and all that stuff. But other than that, a very, very similar trip, almost identical with a few museum options, and then just finalizing those dates. The kicker is we're just trying to make a decision on whether we go before Memorial Day or after Labor Day. After Memorial Day, sorry. Are there any questions or?
Ms. Walker?
Yeah, do you know the approximate cost?
Yeah, the roughly the same price as last year, which I think was $1,195.
Okay, and the prior year was about $100. Am I reading that right? It was about $200
It was about $200
less.
cheaper. So the reason why the escalated cost was the quality of our buses went up last year. The quality of the hotel went up. So it was just an overall much better experience for our students. So that was the original feedback we had received from our students, and we gave to Jeff, and Jeff, worked with us and really gave us a much better experience for our students, which was really great.
Can you just remind us, is this the third year to Philadelphia?
This would be year 3.
Year 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So I love that you are getting feedback and kind of
Absolutely.
the trip is evolving from
Yeah.
year to year.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I get text messages on the way home. What dates are we going to next year? And how can, this is what we're going to do to fix it, or this is what we're going to do to make it better. So my teachers are all in on it. Obviously, the kids have a great experience. Obviously, the cost is, it is a significant, investment for families, and we do the fundraising. And, we're trying to do some things that, taking that feedback from last week as well, looking at more community-based. We do have 2 individual fundraisers planned after your approval of that. Hopefully we'll get that this week. But then looking at other community-based field trips, going back to community-based fundraisers, going back to last week's, we have a pretty cool idea to bring the community back that you guys will get some paperwork hopefully sometime this week on a cool little pumpkin theme Halloween that'll bring all the community members onto the NOC. So hopefully you guys enjoy that one, and happy to clarify questions once you guys review that.
Nice. Go ahead, Ms. Walker.
So I do appreciate the additional information on the financial, contributions. So that was really helpful. I think, I appreciate that you brought up the cost. It continues to be a concern for me, just because even if people don't ask for assistance, it is still a burden on a family. For sure. And many feel that they can do it, but it isn't the most ideal situation for them. But they're gonna do it because they want their student to participate. So the more we can do to offset that cost, to me, this is a little high. So I hope we can try to think of ways to defray that cost, whether it's through additional budget as we approach our budgeting, or just the community-based fundraising. I absolutely agree that the individual financial request, both asking for financial assistance, but also fundraising individually is something I'd like to have us avoid. So I appreciate that. Just out of curiosity, do you have a sense of the 9 or 14 in the prior year, 9 last year? Is there a general reason people choose not to go?
Yeah, some students just feel like it's just not the right time for them to go away. So usually it's a family decision. So we work with those families. We always call up. Are there things that we can change, or it's feedback that way? But just some kids just aren't feel like they're ready to do that. Yeah.
And then I know one year we did a survey of parents. I think that was the first year we did this. Do you do any kind of follow-up? You said you got feedback on some of the locations and stuff. Is there general support to continue to do these trips among families, or do you ask that question? Or
I would say if we didn't, there would be a line out my door. So I would say, the year, kind of the year returning from COVID, when we decided not to move forward with a trip because there was just a lot of unknown. I had an inbox that was full of families that were like, we hope it's coming back. And that's the thing. We met as a team, and, we felt comfortable moving forward with the Philadelphia trip. So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Ms. Higgins?
Sorry, do you want to?
Oh, no, you can.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
I was wondering, for the financial assistance requests, were all of them fulfilled, or was there not enough funding to provide everyone?
Yep. So we have been able to fulfill any request for of any amount. So we have families that will request full assistance. We have families that will request partial, some 50%, some 10%, and we're able to fulfill all requests.
Do you correlate the requests with your students identified as low income?
We never go that far. It's basically just a yes for everybody. So we never just, we have an idea, but it's not like we look in like our Aspen system and say, but there's...
I'm not suggesting that we don't fulfill a request. I'm just wondering if there might be families that do qualify as low income and are not requesting assistance, and that just might be an awkward thing for them to do, but we know that they might need it. Is there a way to kind of go the other way?
We always are proactive, so we definitely know some families that are, that are in need, and we always are proactive in the sense of making a phone call and just saying, hey, it's available, whether it's through fundraising or financial assistance. We actually had 2 students last year that we were proactive on our end because we weren't hearing back on whether the student was going. And once we initiated that conversation, it just made a just much easier transition for the student to participate.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Can you explain what it looks like for students who might need assistance for an aid due to mobility or maybe an aid due to developmental needs?
Yep. So we typically have a pretty good ratio from faculty to student. Okay, it's usually about groups of like 9 or 10. In the past, anytime a student has needed, call it a one-to-one, a medical support, we've always added additional nurse or added additional counselor or added additional staff. Each case is just a little bit differently. So when it's a medical need, we obviously lean into our nursing. We have multiple meetings throughout the year to ensure that every student that has a need, we're able to meet it safely. So these are kind of ongoing meetings, and also just meeting out to our providers, the hotels, the bus companies, and just making sure that we make sure everyone feels comfortable and safe.
As well as dietary needs?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So that was one of the big changes that we made with the hotel. Even when we used to go to Washington, D.C., sometimes the quality of food or the options for our students weren't plentiful, for students that were, either gluten or diabetic or anything of that nature. So this change to Jeff and also the upgrade, I guess, like the upgrade of options, our students have much more options I'll give you one example. So the first year they went to Philly, they got like a bagged dinner when they landed on Philly. Okay, here's a bunch of bags, see you later. And they were like, ooh, what's in this bag? So we're like, we need to upgrade this meal a little bit, because the kids were like, I'm hungry, right? So that was one big change that we got. That was the initial feedback. And like, Mary Kate, who's our team leader, and Jen Gross were like, all right, we already know one change. We're like, you guys have only been on the bus for like 6 hours, So that was one huge change to make sure that we were able to accommodate our students that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Mr. Bogart?
Yeah, this is an excellent trip. Everybody raved about it last year, so I'm really glad that you're doing this, and there's a lot of support for place-based education. This is not meant to be as loaded a question as it might sound, but I'm just curious because we get to see you again, and you were here for the Camp Jewel trip. Is there any discussion around missed academic time and how that may or may not be made up? I mean, as a high school teacher, you could assign 100 extra pages, and someone like Theo would do it, and not everybody else would. So I'm just curious, how that tracks with the curriculum.
That's it. So I would say the trip aligns with our civics curriculum quite nicely. The good thing is towards the end of the year, you can imagine that some of the academics are, I wouldn't say looser, but we're towards the end of the year. We've covered our standards at that point. I will say that our 8th grade team is amazing in the sense of the second the kids come back into the classrooms, they're back in to end the year in an appropriate way. So we kind of put a pause on it for 2.5 days. Teachers are still teaching, kind of obviously leading up to the trip and after the trip. So I would say there's really no hindrance on, not being able to get to the curriculum that we need to teach because of this 2.5 day trip. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, it's sort of general because it applies to all the trips.
Yeah, and I think there's just so much value in the trip aside from, the academics, the academic piece in the classroom, the value of the trip, obviously, with the students being able to experience it.
And the integration with civics is couldn't be better. So it was just more of an ongoing discussion. It'd be interesting on how that plays out. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Okay, looks like we're ready for a motion to approve. If anyone would like to do that, it's policy JJH. You do it.
Just because it has a policy reference.
I know, but you're good at it. You know the numbers and letters and everything.
I move to approve the Philadelphia field trip for grade 8 as presented tonight according to policy JJH.
Second.
Thanks, everybody.
Any discussion?
I just want to say I think the questions were relevant to what's in the policy, so I appreciate that members did ask those questions because those are the things we're supposed to ask.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for coming again.
Thank you. Appreciate it. No problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Mr. Wolf, you're up.
Okay, thanks for having me. And so I'm here tonight to go over a trip through our NHS theater department, which is its annual trip to New York City. So I think in your packets you have just a general overview of the trip. That would cost approximately $750 to $800. The teachers of the program rent vans, which obviously helps to defray the cost of the trip, and there'll be 2 nights at the Marriott Marquis. And some highlights of the trip, which work well with the theater program and music program's curriculum. Stephanie Phillips, she coordinates through Broadway Imagine, so where the students part of the program are able to work with Broadway professionals, so to better hone their skills. But then they also get to attend a Broadway musical, and this time around they'll be checking out a sketch comedy improv show. And then on the last day of the trip, they will be going to the newly opened Museum of Broadway. So definitely an exciting trip for the students, part of the program who elect to go.
All right, do we have any questions for Mr. Wolf? Go ahead.
So I know we got the trip summary in advance of the meeting. I did not see anything about the participation in the theater program and art program trips. Do you have any data on that in terms of the number of students and any that asked for assistance?
Yep, last year for the theater trip, there were, 31 students who participated. The cost of the trip was $750. There were no students who had requested assistance.
Do you
For
know?
the other trips that we had that year, we had a total of 5 trips that the high school had sponsored. 127 students participated, and of those, across those 5 trips, 15 total students had received assistance.
Appreciate that. I guess my question is specifically about the theater program, and that no students requested fundraising assistance. Just was there, similar to the questions we've asked before, is outreach generally given to students who maybe would be inclined, who may be in a position not to fundraise or not have the financial ability to participate?
Yep, there is outreach. So where the teachers who sponsor the trips, for any students who do sign up, they typically will request a report, because we can run reports on students who are free and reduced lunch, and then we pretty much go from there. But a step that we did, that we are adding into this school year, just to make it a little bit, I don't want to say simpler, but easier for a student to make the request, is a Google form that just once this trip is approved, and once the teacher starts advertising for the trip, students will also receive a Google form that they can fill out, or their parents can fill out, just saying that they would need some type of assistance that we can then work with. So that was a shift that we decided with the team of teachers that typically are doing trips, just to make it more accessible.
Great.
Yes.
Sorry, I have the same question for you as Mr. Marcos. Is your 15 total students, are they identified as low income, or do you not know?
The 15 total students, not necessarily low income, because we did have a couple of students that at that point in time they were going through situations that require, but they had not qualified initially for free and reduce.
I just remember we had this conversation last year, and I had asked you about sort of the intent that we have assistance available, and we ask people if they are taking advantage of it versus the impact, and how many students that need financial assistance are actually taking advantage of these trips, right? Or are they actually going on it? And so I really appreciate that you gave us this data this year. And so I just went on to look at the demographic data, and it's almost a perfect match, where 11% of your high school population qualifies as low income, and you have 11% of students who receive financial assistance. And so, I was actually really impressed and excited to see that, because you want to see those things match. As you mentioned, the 15 it's not an exact replica against low income, but I would love to see you continue to track this data.
No, definitely.
And just to see, who are the students that are going, and even disaggregate it further. So, are non-white students interested in going on these trips? Do they feel welcome, or do they, sign up? Do any of our L students do the same thing? Just to see the impact of who's coming, and then, if there seems to be something skewed in your data, just kind of trying to figure out why.
Yep, no, definitely. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think one of the things that I think about when I approve these trips is we're trying to provide experiences to people who may not get there. To me, the purpose of doing these trips is to provide a unique experience to our student population that has educational value, but also, developmental value. And so the more we can sort of figure out as a measure of success, if we're reaching populations that maybe wouldn't normally have access to these kind of resources, is helpful for us in making these decisions.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions? Go ahead.
Am I to assume that the teachers are driving the vans?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any increased insurance liability around that?
That is part of the trip. that gets included into the cost.
Okay.
It's just the insurance pieces that come with the band.
Okay.
And just like with the vans that we drive, the district owns for the athletic events or special education.
Any other questions? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion. Once again, that policy is JJH. If somebody wants to give it a go.
I move to approve the high school theater field trip to New York City as presented according to policy JJH.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Higgins. Two
you very
motions in a
much.
row.
Thank you.
All right, we're ready for the music lab update. I assume you're doing that, Superintendent?
Yes, sure.
Do you have slides?
Just a couple
All right,
pictures, and I don't have a big presentation on this one, but I just want to, first of all, credit the NEF. So this is our new music lab. We don't have the before and after, but this has totally changed the whole classroom environment, for the students. We have more stations. The NEF has sponsored all of the new technology, $50,645 worth of the new technology. So this lab's being utilized for both Mullen technology and Knock music composition classes. The old system that we were running is 20 years old, and the NEF purchased that back then, which was state of the art, but obviously it's out of date. And what's really nice about this, I'm thinking, is there another slide there, Ms. Rowland? Is a teacher, two things happened here. Not only did we get the new equipment, but our maintenance crew, if you look at the countertop, the maintenance crew for saving costs installed that, Matt Gallant especially, and James McSweeney, our new facilities director, has been really just extraordinary in the sense of doing a lot of this work within district. So the teacher station with Mr. Nickerson's really excited. He's up front. They move the projectors so the students can actually look up front, but then he has the ability to walk around the room. The other aspect of the new technology and with the integration is to down the road to utilize this for other classes too, for some of their projects. But the space is beautiful. Before it was in different rows. It really wasn't accessible for students, in wheelchairs, in the sense that this new room design is just great. So in not only the support of the NEF, but also Mr. Nickerson's input on how to make this space even better than it was. Also the NEF, part of the upgrades, they also sponsoring $10,000 for new microphones for the auditorium for the performances this year too. So you'll be able to hear the students as they perform. So a lot of great things happening. We had some high school students who worked in the summer. I want to credit them for their painting of the room. They did a nice job for their summer job, assisting with maintenance and custodians throughout the year. So it was a great team effort, but I just really wanted to show some of that technology upgrade for the music, and I think we have been investing in bringing back our music program, and then this is just another piece of that. So it's good news music update there.
Go ahead, Ms. Walker.
So I'm glad you tied it to the fact that we're trying to update our, bring us back to the days where we had a strong music program. I know we have a strong music program now. I think it can be even better. So I think just trying to track this to numbers, how has this investment benefited X number of students, what does it mean in terms of the curriculum we're able to provide across the board, not just at the NOC, but all the way up into the high school? Sort of what are the benefits of this investment from a impact to students standpoint? And I don't necessarily need you to if you have this data, great. But I think conceptually, yes, we understand that. But I think as we go into budget, and also just thinking about these kind of investments, a lot of people have told me, the building doesn't make the students, but I think it does in some ways, and I think we need to connect it to the outcomes, right? We need to say, how is this benefiting our students, in what ways, how does it translate into performance in different areas of a well-run student, connecting it to our strategic plan. But I think if we can think about ways to quantify that as much as we can, that would be great. Participation numbers in theater would be awesome. Number of students taking music classes at all levels. Just thinking about those kind of numbers would be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're ready for subcommittee updates, starting with you, Mr. Callahan, of FinCom.
We have not met, but we're going to meet on October 17th. One item that will be on that agenda is the Newburyport Youth Services contract or agreement, or whatever the wording is, with the athletic department in terms of rental fees for the gyms. I know it's coming up this year, but I'm not really sure we know much about it and how it works and how the money is distributed and all those things. So that's definitely going to be on there.
I saw that email. Will we have some guests at the meeting who can help us?
I'm hoping that Jim Antonelli will be able to visit.
Okay.
But then it can be just the rest of the stand
Great.
thing. And all of you fine people are welcome to come as well.
All set?
Yes, so it's October 17th at 9:30 in central office.
Thank you. Ready for some policy first reads, Ms. Walker?
Yeah, so we have a number of policy items for first reading tonight. Sorry, just advance to that item. As in the past, provided in your packet are the changes. So anything that's changing about the existing policy is either shown as a strike through or bolded text. Bolded text are additions, strike through obviously are deletions. So starting with the DBJ, Budget Transfer Authority, adding
Excuse me,
some
Ms. Walker,
yeah.
can we ask Phil to come up here in case there are questions related to these things? Can he stand at the podium? Because I'm definitely going to ask him a question. Okay.
All set? Sure, that's fine. No,
That's not
these
hypothetical. Yeah, thank you.
At least the first few are budget related. So sure.
Yeah, so policy G, we'll just go through each one,
Sure.
and you can ask questions on each one. So DBJ was held out from our audit review because we did want the finance director to look at, the business director to look at this. These changes were vetted and may have even been created by the business manager. Did you have any specific questions?
Me?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Littlehale, the Budget Transfer Authority, I know at one point we decided on a number where you won't have to ask us. Do you remember what that number is?
I believe we settled upon 50,000.
Do we think that number should be in this policy at all?
I believe we've gotten feedback in this one, related to this one, that we should not identify a number.
Okay.
Could you just briefly give us the rationale behind the changes in this policy?
Well, the original reasoning back a couple years ago when we talked about it was to make life a little easier, quite frankly, for those of us in the finance office, and also not to bog you folks down with every $100 or $200 transfers that need to be done. Usually during the course of the year, we don't do that many budget transfers. And then at the end of the year, what I will do is I will go in and do quite a few of them to zero out the lines and get everything down to zero. Should we need during the course of the year, we will make those transfers. It also makes it easier for us to get the stuff done in a somewhat more timely fashion rather than waiting for every 2 weeks or every month for the finance subcommittee to make the changes. I also would like to point out that these were budget changes that can only be done within each section. So it can only be a personnel line to a personnel line or a non-personnel to a non-personnel. Any change that crosses over that barrier, regardless of the dollar amount of that, has to come to the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Okay, so I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah,
Maybe
just
one more
a
question.
question about the 50,000. I mean, it almost sounded like that was an arbitrary number, but in a previous conversation, it sounded like there was some trigger in place, policy-wise or otherwise.
I can't recall how we ended up on 50,000. I will tell you that in terms of special ed, sometimes we do need to make those budget transfers, especially within tuition, or having to move. Because right now, tuition lines, it used to be one line. Now I have 5 or 6 different lines for tuition because we identify the type of school that the student's going to. So when I put the budget together, I do my best to anticipate what those might be. But we suddenly have a student coming in who's going to, say, a residential placement, and we hadn't budgeted for it, so I need to move money from a non-residential program to get it down there, because I don't like the lines to go negative, because it tends to throw you off when you're trying to look at the reports to see where you are financially. So I want to make sure that I can, especially for special ed, move that around. Most of the other non-personnel lines aren't that big, you know, in terms of outside of special ed, most of them would be the electric and gas lines, but we don't really do a whole lot with those in terms until we hit the end of the year, because we want to see how we do with the utilities.
Yeah, the specific examples are helpful. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any feedback? Okay. All right, the next item is crowdfunding. We were proposing to delete this current policy and replace it with an updated policy titled Online Fundraising and Solicitations / Crowdfunding. This is, I believe, almost entirely a MASC. Yeah, it is an MASC policy. So it obviously is a little more comprehensive than what we had before. And I don't actually know why I think we did actually send this. We did send this to the Finance Subcommittee.
I remember looking at it in FinCom. Yeah.
Any questions on that one? Okay, the next one is policy JJE, which is student fundraising. So this, again, we modified our existing policy. I would say that the additions were not substantial. It was just to clarify our overall approach to individual fundraising, or trying to, not put undue burden on families, and why we have a policy about this. Any questions on that one? Okay. Policy JJF is student activity accounts. I don't know if you have questions for Phil on this one.
Yeah. Mr. Littlehill, could you come back up?
So
Sorry.
this one we did also review this, I believe, with the Finance Subcommittee. And I think the key changes here are, we are complying with DESE guidelines. I think that's the main takeaway here. There's a lot more detail in here than in our prior policy. Explanation of what happens with student activity accounts, that accounts with maximum balance limits that exceed $25,000, the school committee shall consider an audit be conducted. I think this is already our practice, but we wanted to have it in our policy to reflect that practice. And basically, other than that, it's consistent with the DESE recommendations and the MASC model.
Do you know? We don't have any that are near that $25,000 amount?
Just to get a little more background, we have been working with both Paul Szymanski and Janet Wright to look at the student activity policy as well as the functioning within the district as a whole. We need to tighten a few things up and get some more things down on paper. And I met with them on Friday. We went through a very detailed discussion on some of the things that they're looking at. Most of it will line up with what's already in there. One of the things we did talk about was the level of the money that can be kept in the checking accounts, and I was actually wanted to go lower than what we have in there. And we had some back and forth on that, and we're going to be meeting with the superintendent, hopefully. I think October is a bad month, so I think it's going to be in early November to go over what they've come up with in terms of reviewing our entire student activity setup as well as the policy. So there might be a few more tweaks coming to that.
Okay. Would it be better to hold this policy for that update? We
Yeah.
don't actually currently reference the checking account maximum in here, but if you wanted to, if we wanted to have that in the policy, we could.
It's something I think you probably should put in the policy because it also has to be voted by you folks every year as well. So it's just a reminder for us to take a look at it.
Then why don't we hold, I would recommend we hold this one. Well, we've done the first, we can do the first reading, but we'll hold this until we get feedback from Mr. Littlehale and Superintendent.
Okay. And could you have that information for that October 17th?
I will have whatever we have at that point, yes.
Whatever you have. And as well, just so before I forget, the list of current numbers in the activity accounts?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll have that as well.
All right, next one is one that we've all reviewed a number of times over the course of my time on the school committee, which is community use of school facilities. Currently in our policies, it's policy FG. To be consistent with MASC index, we're recommending it be changed to KF. So basically, this just clarifies what we are currently practicing. The first section is just updating some of the language to clarify our regulations, our fee schedule, and so forth, and the approval process, the types of facilities this applies to. KFR is when there's a -R at the end, it means it's a related policy, more of a rule-based policy. And this is, again, reflective of our current practice, which you'll note at the last page, there's a reference to the 9 a.m. No organized activity will begin on any athletic field prior to 9 a.m. on Saturdays, Sundays, or holidays. We can waive that by action of the school committee. In prior iterations of this, the Sundays had been left out, so that it was unclear whether they were not allowed to do it at all or whether they could ask for a waiver. So we did clarify that. I think this is currently what we're operating under anyway, because we did vote on a prior version, but this just brings it all together into one policy and kind of crosses the T's and dots the I's. Any questions on that?
I have a question. You want to go? I figure out what I was going to say.
Well, I can't read your mind. The 9 a.m. on Sundays comes up, or it did last year, so
right.
We didn't waive the usage. So, and it was used, so.
Well, I think that was part of it. It was almost granted.
opaque,
You were going to be able. We're going to waive it anyway because it was ridiculous policy.
I see.
In my opinion.
Because Sunday was not identified.
Right. So I think the 9 a.m., I think this one makes it equitable to all, equally applied to all holidays and weekends. I think there is history here in the community about concern about athletic field activity in residential neighborhoods. We do have the option to just eliminate this rule altogether, but
I don't mind the time. The time is fine. I think at one point it was 2. And I believe there's still a sign on Summit Place that states that.
I think.
Can we have that removed?
What's that?
There's a sign at the entrance from Summit Place to the baseball diamond area that has that outdated policy on it. Is that a city telephone pole? Would the city have to remove that?
The city doesn't own telephone poles.
Well, it's something that the school doesn't own for sure, but there's a sign about
What about the sign?
You guys going to go out and take it off?
Yeah. I'll go down there. I don't care.
If it's bothering you, I don't want to keep it up.
Mayor, can you find out who's responsible for removing that? It's not Gallagher.
We'll take care of it.
Yeah, it would be good to
Between
get it removed.
the Seans.
But is there a suggestion that you could just not have the policy? I mean, what I worry about is that the youth leagues find this onerous, and some do and some don't, and then we're caught in inconsistent.
We could certainly eliminate, I think we could eliminate this policy. I don't know if there's any city stipulation that we'd be contradicting, but that's not my purview.
Yeah, I mean, I'd prefer if they ask for permission of some sort, but I don't think they need to come to us, is my point.
Mm-hmm. You could change it so that it's, all of these have to be approved by the superintendent. All of these uses have to be approved by the superintendent and the athletic director anyway.
In case there's a conflict, but I know the high school sports, last time we went through this, they weren't practicing on the Sundays. It was more for the rec baseball. Yeah. I think it was Babe Ruth. Sunday practice, lacrosse.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple different local leagues have come to us asking for that, and then it seemed like there was some history of them actually using those fields
Yeah,
in the morning
without needing a
anyways.
waiver, yeah.
I mean, I would be inclined to remove it since we do have an approval process, as you said, that they have to go through anyways. I would be comfortable with taking it out. So,
Okay.
Yeah, the case would be, are they calling the superintendent at 8:30 on Sunday morning? I mean, it just literally happens. And we're not getting a vote. So they're going on the field. That's what happens in reality. So I'd prefer.
And they'll call me no matter what, so.
All right, well, I'm happy if there's general interest in making that change, I could bring that forward to second reading and we can vote on it then.
I like that.
great, thank you.
I just have a question about item number 7. This is related to the youth services thing I just said for the FinCom meeting. Facilities will be used according to regulations and rental fee schedules recommended by the superintendent, approved by the school committee. I don't remember if I've ever seen a rental fee schedule or anything like that since I've been on the school committee. So if we could have that for that same meeting, the full thing, yeah, that'd be great. And then we can do that similar to what we do with the NEF, like every year look at it. Or I guess we'd have to do it almost a year in advance, right? So we look at it now, it's too late for this year, so we'd have to discuss what the following year would be. Okay, thanks.
I feel like that should be part of like the budget process, is review the fees for the upcoming year.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else? All right, so we'll bring these back for second reading, other than policy JJF, which we'll hold for input from the business manager and the FinCom.
Oh, so these last two are the ones you emailed that weren't actually
The
being
last two
out
pages
for
are
review.
MASC, you can ignore that.
The ones that say -R.
Yeah, well, no, there's there's the one that has the changes in it, and then for some reason I sent the KF-R mass version.
Got it. Okay.
So we don't need it.
Great. Okay, so next for communications, this is a follow-up from discussion at our retreat about deleting the school committee Facebook account. Mr. Callahan did some work to just check into the legality of it, because we do have a policy in place which says that our Facebook account is subject to open meeting law, and we've created public records. And so if you want to just fill us in, Mr. Callahan has sort of a workaround for that,
Sure.
so that we can move forward.
During that last, I forget which meeting it was actually, I created the archive from Facebook and sent it to the district. And legal said as long as they have that on record, in case people do an information request, that's it. And I can go in right now and hit delete. You and I are the only admins on it. I don't believe either one of us will feel offended not having that role any longer. And in the future, if some other new school committee member wants to start it again, they can certainly do that. So I don't think it's a big deal. We don't really use it anyway. We haven't done for a couple of years.
Right, and I think the legal, it was kind of a gray area, so it's technically not, I guess, part of the public comments, but for us archiving it, it's us being cautious, just in case someone ever wanted to go back.
Yeah, so. I mean, this would never happen, but Facebook could go out of business and they would just shut down, and all that stuff would be gone anyway. So the archive capability, and I went through the archive, it's pretty easy to navigate through. Yeah. Again, it's been like 2 years since there's been a lot of stuff. The most of the communications was done around COVID anyway. Yeah. There's not a whole lot on there.
I believe it was around 2 years ago that we made that decision to put a kind of a blanket statement at the top, which does refer people to our email address if they want to reach out. We really haven't been using it to post information, so as you said, it's been relatively inactive for 2 years, and so I think this makes sense. I can go ahead and make a motion, and then if there's any further discussion, that's fine as well, of course. So I move that we delete the school committee Facebook account, and this is in accordance with policy BHE-R.
Second. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You can have it.
Any discussion?
I'll do that tomorrow.
And just acknowledging that we archived the communications
Yep.
per guidance from our.
I've got a copy. The district has a copy. I can send it to all the school committee members too if anybody wants to have it. It's a fairly
thanks.
small file. No?
Thank you for doing that.
Okay.
Sadly, I don't think we can rely on Facebook going out of business.
No.
Any other comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
All right. The first piece, let's see. Data calendar update. So I think for us, from feedback from school committee members and also school community, looking at a variety of data points, not only just the academic data, but also school culture, social emotional data, throughout. We receive feedback like, how are you measuring that type of data? So I think working with our assistant superintendent of teaching and learning, and also our vertical team of teachers throughout the summer, they are really developing, I think, a data calendar where we're going to project the, and Ms. Furlong can come up and get more detail, but I'll give the general aspect. Really looking at student growth in a variety of ways. So you have an academic piece of data that's very, very important to us as a school community. We also have the school culture data, where we're really, through the strategic plan, creating a sense of belonging. So that's our goal. How are we measuring that through school culture? Social emotional learning, how important that is part of our strategic plan. So what are the data points that we're looking at that to see if we're meeting that goal? And then ultimately, down the road at the end, looking at our district goals, school improvement goals, and where did we land on that. So with collaborative leadership and working with the experts, which are the teachers that are analyzing this data, our adjustment counselors and counselors, this summer they were really working towards, I think, a team effort on how we're going to be presenting this throughout the school year. So that's kind of the overview, and Ms. Furlong can come up with the data calendar presentation.
We don't have a calendar yet at this point. So pretty much when I came in July, Tom Abrams and I started meeting with stakeholders around data. What are we doing with data? How are we using data? How are we using it to inform instruction? How are we using it to track student progress, to create interventions, and then to provide that report to all of our stakeholders, from the school committee and the community to parents to our teacher community to our students as well. So far, what we did is based on that feedback, we kind of reimagined what had been a vertical data team to a much smaller group, reconfigured the group right now to be very focused on the MCAS data, because that's sort of the first subset of data that comes at us that we really need to look at and coordinate. On that, we've got 22 people, including the principals, our coaches, our interventionists, and the curriculum leaders for each of the testing areas, math, science, and literacy. So our focus with the team has really been on establishing a evaluation process so that we're looking at the MCAS data from the perspective of what can we do differently in terms of our curriculum, what do we need to do differently in terms of how our instruction, and what students are sort of coming out to us as we need to pay attention to, whether that's a subgroup or an individual student. So where we're at with that process, we have really pretty much outlined what is about a 6 to 8 week process of going through a few different iterations at the large group of 22 level, back out to the schools, back in, trying to iterate it a few times. When they go back out to the schools, our teacher leaders will be working with their departments or their grade level. So you could have Molly Farrell, let's say she's our math coach. She might be going back and working with 3rd, 4th, 5th grade teachers around the math data. We might have Megan Horst, who is our instructional leader at the high school, working with the math department. So they'll be going back and forth, and that's why I just wanted to say to Sean, like we were really looking for a little bit of a longer timeline to present the MCAS data in November this year. Preliminary data is just coming out. By pushing it to the November 18th meeting, where I will bring the whole team with me, to present. It gives us time to really not just dig into the data, but to establish a new process that hopefully will have a stronger impact on our instruction. And also on looking at whether the curriculum that we're using, the resources we're using, is really hitting the targets with the standards that we're finding ourselves either weak with, or looking at what are those places where we're strong and trying to do more of that. So that's kind of phase one. Phase two, once we've got the presentation and we come and present to you, we're going to do what we're calling a data audit, and that's looking at all the different types of data that we have out there that we use in a lot of different ways to try to get a much clearer sense of defining the data that we have available to us, being clear about how we're going to use it, and then putting some structures in place to ensure that, number one, the teachers have that data at hand so that they can make sort of faster changes to know what's going on. So you have an MCAS data, you're only getting it once a year. You're getting it after the students have already left you. But we have other data in place, whether that's the assessment that comes as a part of the tool that we're using, like the MyView assessment tools, or assessment tools that teachers are creating, in addition to the iReady, which we have 3 times a year, in addition to Dibbles. How does all that data fit together so that a teacher who has a group of students in front of her can use that data usefully to say, here's what I need to do differently, here's how I need to group differently, here's an area that across the whole grade level maybe we have a weakness in, so it speaks to maybe our curriculum product isn't as strong as it needs to be. So that's kind of phase two. Let's do a data audit. Let's figure out all the data we have in front of us. Let's create some structures that are really teacher-driven, that are also sustainable. Something practical, something useful, and then from there look to, okay, now how are we communicating this data to the constituencies that need it, in terms of parents, students, and the community at large. As a part of that, one of the 2 big ideas that we've been brainstorming around is coming back in January, and as Sean spoke to, we do have a lot of data around school climate and culture. So our MCAS data being much more academically driven, we do have a set of data from the vocal data that comes from the state. We did a survey in the spring that we have some data from. The high school does some of their own surveying. The middle school does some of their own surveying. So we would like to come back in January to do something really more around school climate and culture. And then the third piece that I'm just going to throw out there as an idea, it's a concept right now, is how do we create a presentation that's data-driven around the portrait of a graduate? Last year, we began with a group of 15 students who were sort of ambassadors helping us explore how can a student use their own data to share their experience K to 12 through Newburyport, to allow us to kind of paint a broader picture of this whole child idea that we talk a lot about. So that's kind of our third piece that we would like to implement as far as data goes. For now, we are not recommending that we continue with 3 times a year, strictly standalone iReady data. And we will continue to use iReady data. We will continue to give those tests. We're really working hard to try to establish that for the instructional piece of the iReady data, and that is that we're using the beginning, middle, and end of year data to make sure that teachers have it in place so they understand the students in front of them. They can evaluate it at a grade level to say how we're making progress with the standards across a grade, and they can evaluate it at the student level in terms of identifying young people who might be in need of intervention. And then our interventionists, which is why they're on the team with us, are really going to be looking at how iReady just becomes much more actionable in the classroom at the curriculum level. So that's kind of what we've been working on so far. It really is a work in progress, but a really great group. We had a nice meeting today, and getting a lot of great feedback from teachers.
Great. Any questions for Ms. Furlong?
Nope, I have a question for Superintendent.
Oh, yes, go ahead and say it.
I have a couple of comments. Thank you so much for coming up and being so responsive to this feedback about the data and how you share the data. I think it's really exciting what you are thinking about and how your team is putting this together. So just a couple of comments that I had is potentially you could think about giving an early MCAS presentation in October, just in the more traditional time frame, because I'm sure the community will want to know, like, how did our schools do? And so whether that's, perhaps just the superintendent and you just doing a high-level overview. And then I really do appreciate the idea of, in November, doing a more in-depth presentation on trends, takeaways, next steps. I really appreciate that you talked about making data useful, because I work with so many schools that you can drown in data and then not do anything about it, right? You're just looking at Excel spreadsheets and that's it. But it's, sometimes you need less data to really figure out how to make it actionable. And so I really appreciate that that's where you're going to direct your principals and your teachers' attention. And so that's just a suggestion, is to kind of give us all a high-level overview. I mean, I know I can look at it myself, but I want to make sure that the whole community can kind of see it. And then, getting that presentation in November from the principals on how they're making that actionable. I also really appreciate the survey data that you're going to be presenting to us in January. I think that's also a really great idea. My only question/suggestion, and it just might not work for this year because I know you're starting something new, and I love what you're starting, but just I guess for the future is, as principals are creating their school plans for the next year and setting their goals for the next year, I'd want that survey data to inform their goals. And so can they be looking at that survey data, at the end of a school year, using it to set goals for themselves for the following school year? And then, I don't know when we come into that presentation, but I just wouldn't want them looking at survey data in January and then figuring out how to react to it immediately.
Yeah. No, great. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, yes.
So my question is for the superintendent, because as follow-up to this discussion, one of the things we talked about was modifying the curriculum, instruction, student life, whatever it's going to be in the future. So how does that fit into this process?
So I think from talking with Ms. Furlong, I still think there's a role for the CISL. But from our retreat and listening to school committee, I think having a separate data presentation outside of, the community. I think so for us, we're really focused on presenting the data, I think, for the committee as a whole. So I think for, looking at CISL, it's kind of in flux on how we're going to implement that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm willing to give it a year, but I mean, this was a big issue for many of us early on, was how we as a school committee can give input on particularly connecting the data and broader goals of the district to our curriculum choices. And we're not micromanaging the curriculum choices, but I think understanding that is an important role for us as a committee. So I don't want that to fall off our purview. So I'm willing to try this. I do know that some of the members of that, or at least one member, has asked me if it's going to get reinvigorated. So, I think the nice thing about that group was that it did bring in parents, representative parent of a parent, a student, and others. So, I hope we can continue that conversation. Maybe we have another. If you're not going to restart it immediately, maybe we could talk about it again in January and just understand what makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the other piece too, it's I think from the retreat to now, I think in really having a kind of informal discussion on CISL, the whole idea was to do a lot of these presentations outside of the committee of the whole, but it seemed like the committee wanted to have more data discussion. So working with Lisa and Dr. Abrams, this is kind of where we're at right now. The other piece that we also have is our Superintendent Advisory Council, which is made up of a lot of community members, and we do a lot of the data presentations there. So I firmly believe in that CISL, because I think having informal presentations to a subcommittee or advisory council allows more of the give and take back and forth. So I really believe in that concept. I think in my previous district, when I was a principal, those were, I think, valuable meetings that we had. So I just think it's really taking a look at where does that fit in, for this year? So it's not like we're abandoning it. It's just like how we're going to, I guess, really enhance it, and then where does it fit in? And I don't want to duplicate some of the work that you guys are all going to be getting on that. So it could just look a little bit different.
Okay. Well, like I said, I think we should have that conversation again in January, maybe at our next retreat. I didn't necessarily come away from the retreat thinking we shouldn't have that group. I felt like we just mentioned that it's also important to have it presented to the full committee.
Correct.
So anyway, but we can continue that conversation.
Yeah, well, I guess if one wanted to institute the CISL, why would one not do it sooner rather than later?
Well, we already have the format. I think, for us, it's working a lot. I think I'm allowing Ms. Furlong to get this vertical data team up and running and not have them jump right in. So I think the concept of a CISL or a curriculum subcommittee made up of either advisory committee or down the line a subcommittee is something that we should still consider. Because when you have, as I said, you can have with a subcommittee or an advisory council like that I have, you can have those informal discussions around curriculum where you can really bring student voice to the table also. So it's just right now, where's that going to fit in? I didn't want to burden Ms. Furlong and her team. Well, hey, we're going to start CISL in September, so.
Okay. I mean, is the ball then in our court at some point to create a subcommittee?
We could. That was a topic that we raised previously, and the school committee at that time said they didn't want to consider it, which included members who are here now. But we also, the result was that we decided the CISL was an alternative, which is not a subcommittee of the school committee. It's in the form it was over the past couple of years. It was a subcommittee of the superintendent. So the superintendent determined who the membership was. The mayor, as the chair, recommended folks from our body to sit on it, but it wasn't a school committee body.
I see. Thank you for the clarification. That's great. No, thank you for pulling this all together. That's a lot of work in a short period of time.
Good.
We ready?
Next topic.
All right. Next topic. I just provided the committee with enrollment numbers for the school year, what we have right now. So we have 2,155 students district-wide, which includes the 43 of the out-of-district placement at this time. And then this year, school choice numbers, total of 53. So we opened up 89 slots through school choice. We had 100 applicants. And then basically when the dust settled, we have 53 that are now currently enrolled in the district. Not sure if there's any questions. I know. Easy. All right. Is that all I have?
It says here bus transportation update. Is that something you wanted to do now?
Yeah, I think just in general, and I'm not sure if I spoke about this at our last school committee, but coach company has come in. We had opening of school when you go from one company to the next. You try to anticipate if there's going to be problems, but I just want to say the coach company has been super responsive. They were there on site the whole week of transportation. They've been responsive if we have to move a stop here and there, and I think what's really beneficial for the company is many of the employees are very familiar with Newburyport, and some have left the previous company to work with the new company. And I just wanted to say it's been the transition and opening of schools with transportation was flawless this year. So I want to credit the committee, credit Mr. Littlehale for the bid and going through that whole process. And so far, so good with Coach, the Coach company. So that's it for that.
At a future meeting, could we get an update on number of passes and riders and number of buses?
We'll do that for the next meeting.
Thank you.
I want to make sure too, there was parents asking about ADA bus, and they said they couldn't do it, but if there was going to be a field trip, they would bring like
No, they
a
have
big
an
rail bus.
ADA bus, correct?
They do have one.
Yes, they do.
Because they hadn't had one at the time.
No, they had one at the time.
A regular school, like an everyday school bus?
It's going to be, it's actually, because it's a coach company, they have a coach bus.
Right. But I mean, that won't be used on a daily school run. It will be for special events.
Correct.
Okay.
Like field trips. So for, yeah. I think it was really important for us too when we were looking at the bid pieces. So we're excited about that.
All set?
All set.
Okay, moving on to new business. I know we have some new business tonight.
Yeah, I would like to get a little more information on the GoFan decision, and I sent the superintendent some questions in advance of this meeting. I guess I'd like to hear from you the decision. What are the benefits to going to a GoFan option where it sounds like the initial communication was maybe misinterpreted, but if we get clarity on that, are people able to use cash to go to events now? What are the benefits of using GoFan? Is there a cost to the district? And just sort of what are the overall, what's the explanation, the overall decision behind this? And I would say my concern comes from the fact that I understand it's a convenience for potentially the ticket collectors, the district as a whole, but I have used GoFan for MIAA events and other events. I know we've been using it for at least a year for some of the events. I find it fine, but I have a smartphone. I have relatives who do not have a smartphone, and it was nearly impossible for them to be able to go to athletic events because without me. These aren't kids; these are adults. And when I tried to do it, there's no ability to print a ticket from home. There's no ability to provide a screenshot of that ticket to somebody to bring with them. So my concern is it's an equity issue. I'm concerned about the ability, of people without smartphones. I also think it's an independence issue for kids who want to attend events who maybe don't have a smartphone and now have to rely on their parents or their guardians. And I'm concerned about just sort of how this has been rolled out. I think there were some communication issues. I understand that actually you are allowing people to pay cash, but that's not what's been communicated. So I guess if you could just sort of give an overall explanation of what the reasoning behind this was and what the actual policy is related to the tickets.
Yeah. So as you all know, if you experienced MIA last year, this is an app that the Massachusetts Interscholastic Association is using for all their playoff games. Last year we piloted boys and girls basketball games and hockey games. The GoFan app. So I think last year was piloted in anticipation for MIA events. Throughout all the leagues, the Cape Ann League, the Northeast Conference, Merrimack Valley, Dual County, all MIA events, they are going to GoFan. So league-wise, this is where I think the whole athletic state is going. So for us, and Ms. D'Antonelli communicated out as much as he could about the GoFan. They're going to be utilizing that, but there is a cash option. And it's almost like a hybrid this year as we gravitate, I think, to the GoFan. But I think there's always going to be a cash option. This year we took in $915 of cash, so there wasn't any students in anticipation of some of the communication that went out. No one got turned away from the football game this Friday night. They didn't have the app. But I think it's something that is happening across the state. So if you're a Newburyport parent and you're going to go to, Masconomet for a game, they'll be utilizing GoFan. I'm not sure if they have the hybrid option. So that's kind of where we're at, and I think that's the decision that was made. But for Newburyport, we'll continue with the hybrid, where people can continue to go to the games, with the cash option. And if students or adults came to the game, on Friday and they didn't have cash or the app, they were still allowed access. So no one was turned away.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I would say, though, that I'm concerned that the MIA has gone this direction, and I actually am surprised that they're legally allowed to do that. And I had concerns about it last year. I think it's an equity issue that's going to come up, and they're going to be challenged about it. So I don't know that we, as a community, just because everybody else is doing it, should step in line and do it. I think we need to be clear that this is beneficial and why it's beneficial to offer this option, but I absolutely don't want to go away from cash. I think you have to have an alternative. I also would throw out there that I would, as a school committee member, support giving students free pass into any game, any school event. I don't think it's fair to make students pay to go cheer their fellow athletes and students on. So if that's something we could consider in the future, I would 100% support it. And it would eliminate a lot of these issues that I have with requiring, this GoFan app. I know it's not required, but it is this perception, and it is a little bit of an obstacle for some kids. Plus, it would eliminate the need for them to bring cash at all. And so if there's any concerns about safety, which I understand is probably one of the concerns. So that would be one of my recommended solutions, is that we give all students free pass to all events.
So moved.
Theater.
Sorry, you can get a motion.
I mean, I don't know if it's a motion we make, or if you're willing to consider it, Mayor, then I'm happy to bring it forward as a motion where we can put it on the agenda. But and it would apply to theater, all events, and that people could still give donations. But I just think, what are we doing?
And non-students would pay.
And non-students would absolutely pay. Yeah.
I just want to. Can I go?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the one thing I will say, so I was contacted about this too, and I spoke to superintendent earlier today. I just think that we got the email after the initial, hey, we're going with this thing. Sean communicated to the school committee, but I don't know if one went out to the general district, like, hey, just in case you don't know, you can still use cash. I just think we should do a general one. Hey, everybody, we're going to encourage use of this app. And I have no problem with apps like that in general. I mean, it was great going to Europe and everything was just on your phone, but their money doesn't say legal for all debts, public and private on it. So I am going to guess that the AG is eventually going to come down on MIAA the same way they tried to with the Red Sox 2 years ago when they went to cashless concessions, and then the Red Sox had to implement basically a stored value card. So if you don't have a credit card or smartphone with payment options, you go to Fenway, you have to take your cash, put it in a machine, get a card with that number on it. But the thing that stinks most about that is you can't get it to zero. So they keep your money effectively unless you keep going to Red Sox games. Oddly, they don't do it for concerts at Fenway because I paid cash for stuff at a show. But the one thing I do have a problem with GoFan in general is, for the schools it's free because they don't do credit card processing fees, which is generally $2.9 plus 30 cents. Instead, they pass it on to the buyer of the ticket. So their policy is if it's under $10, it's $1, which means our students are paying 20% in a convenience fee to go to the game, which is worse than Ticketmaster, really. And I know that GoFan's not run by the district, but with the MIAA jumping fully on with this and then not allowing cash at playoff games, I think that's a terrible idea. But locally, I don't mind if we use it. I mean, I would love it there was not those convenience fees because they're certainly less than convenient. Carrie O'Donnell, who was the ticket taker at the game on Friday, said that, again, nobody was turned away, which is awesome. I got in just by saying I had to go talk to the people at the snack shack, and but then I left. I didn't actually.
That was going to be my joke.
Yeah. Sorry, I took it away from you.
You owe us $6.
But $7 for adults, which is a 14% convenience charge.
Okay. Thanks.
If we could just send out a general district email saying, hey, just to clarify, we're encouraging this because it's convenient for all the people, but if you want to pay with cash, you're welcome to pay with cash. And they were taking credit card payment too, so they are able to do that. Yeah. Strangely, there is no fee if you use a credit card, so I don't know how that works. or what that contract looks like actually between the district and whoever owns GoFan. That's my opinion on that.
Yes,
Yeah, I was just going to suggest in the future, if we're going to go in this direction, which I think is a good initiative, if we could get a sense of the scale of what the gate is, that would be great.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, we should talk about that in the budget too, right? When we know we're doing the budget, like what athletics and what the general take is for sports that do charge for admission.
Could maybe put that on a FinCom agenda.
Yes.
Take a look at those numbers.
Do you have those numbers?
Yep, $6,000.
I think
For the one game?
that's great. I mean, I
there are a lot of people
I think
that-
community members would pay more if, I think there are community members that would pay more if students were free, honestly. So I don't, I
Do
think
we know
could
how
make
it's
up that.
done in the region? Like, is it generally students pay for football, basketball,
Yes.
hockey at all?
There's a student fee and then there's an adult fee.
And we don't do that for things like soccer, only because there's so few people comparatively going
Just
to
the
those
ALS
things.
Cup. It's the only thing you pay for.
Right.
And the bigger events, it costs money to run those events.
Right. We have police detail.
Police detail. Yeah.
That'd be good to know too for
Staff.
FinCom. Like, what does a football game cost to operate? Because what are they, $75 an hour for details?
The bigger, I mean, football, you probably have a couple thousand, right?
In detail fees?
1,500.
Yeah.
For fans,
for
basketball games, you're probably around 500 to 1,000 people. So the bigger your event, the more security, the more people you need there.
Okay. Is that it for that? Because I have a couple things for new
So over the
business.
course of the year, that becomes real money.
Gate receipts is a big part of the athletic revolving account.
Yeah. I mean, and that sort of ties into fundraising, because effectively you're fundraising for football. That's what the
basketball.
And, well, I mean, whatever the
You're
particular
offsetting
sport
the
is.
costs of those sports.
Right. So
Yeah.
we can go over that. I mean, I'd like to see those in detail for the ones that do charge. Can I ask another thing? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can I just?
Yeah.
Okay. Just for a second, totally agree with what Ms. Bacher had already said. And, things don't change unless you speak up about them for the MIA especially. And so I'm not prepared to bring a lawsuit, not interested in that right now, but I think we should, they're not going to hear this feedback unless someone tells them this feedback. So, I'm happy to write an email on behalf of the school committee, or does it make more sense to come from the district and, Chairman Tonelli, just if he has any contacts to say, hey, our community, is really anti this reliance on smartphones and would like you to use GoFan. They can talk to their vendor in that app about printing off tickets in advance or screen or whatever, things to make it a little bit more accessible as well as cash. But yeah, just a thought of how do we want to communicate back to the MIA?
Yeah.
I would say like a letter, and we all sign it.
Who wants to author that? Should it be from the district or should it be from us?
Might be better from school committee.
Yeah, that's what
I'm happy to take that on, but I would like the clarification first, because when this was asked previously, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, so you can answer this at a future meeting. But when we asked this previously, it was that MIA does not allow you to provide a cash option. I would like to 100% know that, and not just assume that. So if we could get that clarification that that they want you to provide GoFan, but there's no ability to also have a cash option.
For their playoff game.
Yeah.
I'm happy to work with you on that letter.
Great, thank you.
Did we have any other new business?
I have two things. Hopefully they're short.
New business or still about this?
New business.
Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah. Some of it involves you. Last week, the mayor and I, as well as some of the people from NCM Hub and Mike Bartlett from the city, met about Ms. Walker's desire to have Zoom meetings, with Zoom running concurrently with NCM Hub's filming. So we talked about it, and essentially what we're going to have to do is get a mate to these mics that will be broadcasted to this room. So if that's what, 9, right? How many people are we? 6, 7? That one's already there, but there may be for the student one. So 9 mics, a hub of sorts that will allow us to go all into one, because we only have one input on the stage. In theory, the city could come build out a real input there, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I was given loan of the latest and greatest owl, so I want to schedule time with you so we can test that out and see how it actually works compared to the old ones that we had during COVID times. And the mics are roughly $350 each. The hub's probably $100 or so. The issue with the Zoom in general is that we need to have someone to run it. And I did that during COVID stuff. I definitely don't want to do it again. I don't think the school committee members should do it. So if we had to do a stipend for an employee of the district, what's that number, Sean?
I think we were looking at...
Because it's hourly. What's the hourly rate?
Like $35.
Okay, so it's a half an hour on either end, plus however long this meeting is, which today is 2 hours probably, right? So I think the estimate was like $5,000 a year. Unless,
5 or 6. Right,
unless we can have someone who already works here who comes to these meetings all the time do it. But I don't want to ask that of your staff anyway. So that's it. So say $5,000 a year plus the initial outset of costs for the equipment. And then someone's got to come to set it up. Because NCM Hub won't, that's not in their purview really. And they're kind of going to be running that on their own. So if we do this, that's what's going to happen. So, but we don't have to talk about it anymore now.
I'll just say, so we had that meeting on Monday, and Wednesday, if you paid any attention to the community forum around housing, every nightmare scenario happened in that meeting. Because they tried to do a Zoom. This room was completely full from here back with people. We had kind of a similar setup. This was not here, but we had a podium and we had a long table up here for our speakers. And we were trying to do a Zoom. NCM Hub was broadcasting for us, which was great, but obviously that wasn't projecting to the room, and they couldn't get the PA system to work because it's another set of mics. So I was playing Phil Donahue. I had a mic that doesn't magnify your voice, and I was holding in people's faces to talk. And then we had another microphone at the podium. So we had two going on up there for, just for volume for the people who were here, because they couldn't even see the screen and make out the slides, and two, they couldn't hear what anyone was saying. So it was, we eventually fixed it on the fly, but there was 150 people here. So it is something I'm committed to. I want to figure out a way to do things better in this room. So I think I'm going to work with my new IT person, and like I said, it's unfair to NCM Hub to put it on them because they're here just to do what they're supposed to do, and again, we have to have a better setup, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's weird money-wise because this is a city building, but it's for a school district.
Right. No, I feel like it should be the city to have this room ready to go. I think the running of the school committee meetings, that's a completely different issue, and I think the school department has to figure out a way for that to happen.
Okay. And last thing, quickly, you guys all got Andy Egmont's NYS Mullen survey for after-school care. I have opinions about the answers to that, which I won't go into tonight, but I think that the district needs to do its own to third and fourth grade parents and fifth grade parents, because it's from her system, which is limited in terms of the amount of people who actually have kids in the district. I think we should do a similar one. Some of it I wouldn't do, but I don't want to talk about it without Andy here to kind of answer for herself. So we can think about working with her and getting a similar one done. I know a lot of people want it. I don't believe it should be the school department's responsibility to do after-school care personally, but we can at least do it. But I think we'd get a broader range of responses if it was through the whole district.
Yeah, I don't think they have to do it, but I think if that's the best way to get the best data around what families are looking for grades 4 and 5, I think we ask the school to do it, and then if the city has to, through the Recreation and Youth Services, come up with some programs, then that's what we do.
Yeah. That's all.
That's actually what I was going to ask about. Is there been any traction on that? I get the impression that there has. There's a little bit of momentum. Was there a meeting?
Yeah, we were looking at, I think, beginning of the school year, we were looking at space in general.
Right.
The space typically, the winter time is the most challenging because most of your, especially for like the gym areas, most of your sports are inside. So I think that's more of the challenge versus the spring in the fall. So I think Andy and I are going to follow up on that, talk to Mr. Antonelli along with Mr. Marcos and the mayor. We had the initial discussion on gym space and classroom space for different projects. So yeah, I think it's ongoing. As always, if there's a issue or a problem or a question, I think we've done a good job at bringing people to the table and having a discussion and see if we can come up with a resolution. So
yeah, thank you for doing that in the last
Yeah.
2 weeks. We had a productive conversation in the last meeting, so it's great to hear that there's been that much movement.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, any other new business? And we are doing an executive session, is
Correct.
that right? It's listed
Yeah.
here. Okay, so then I move that we enter executive session for the purpose of discussing possible litigation and/or legal matters, and we will not reconvene in open session. I need a second.
Second.
Give that to whoever. And then we need the roll call. Yeah.
Mayor Reardon?
Yes.
Sarah Hall?
Yes.
Goldberg?
Yes.
Frank Callahan?
Yes.
Leanna Higgins? Yes. Catherine Shaw?
Yes.
Juliet Wells?
Yes.